Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Saoirse Healey. There's no guest tonight, so tonight it's just me in the studio running you through your top stories of the day. As always, we start with our Ukraine update. It's day 540 of the war. A senior NATO official has apologized and clarified his comments a day after he said publicly that Ukraine could give up territory to Russia in exchange for NATO membership and an end to the war. Stephen Jessen, the Chief of Staff to the NATO Secretary General, said, "My statement about this was part of a larger discussion about possible future scenarios in Ukraine, and I shouldn't have said it in that way. It was a mistake." Ukraine's forces have dug in on the outskirts of Uruzane after recapturing the settlement in the Donetsk region from Russian forces, according to Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar. Ukraine's Air Force said a large group of Russian army drones entered the mouth of the Danube River and headed towards the Izmail River port near the border of Romania. The governor of southern Odessa region, Ole Kipper, asked residents of Izmail district to take shelter at about 1:30 a.m. and cancelled the air raid alert 1 hour later. Russia's defense ministry has claimed it shot down 3 Ukrainian drones southwest of Moscow, the latest in a surge of aerial attacks near the Russian capital. Russian authorities refused to renew a visa for Dutch journalist Eva Hartgoed, who has lived and worked in the country for 10 years and gave her 6 days leave to Russia. Her effective expulsion is one of several in recent years. It comes amid a crackdown that the Kremlin has unleashed on independent journalists, critical news outlets, opposition activists, and the human rights groups. The United States condemned Russia's continued attacks on Ukraine's grain infrastructure in a State Department statement, calling on Moscow to return immediately to the grain deal. Ukraine has said that a civilian cargo vessel had exited its southern port of Odessa on Wednesday, despite warnings from Russia that its navy could target ships using Ukraine's Black Sea export hubs. Ukraine will not be able to operate US-built F-16 fighter jets this coming autumn and winter, air spokesperson Yuri Inhat told Ukrainian television on Wednesday late. Vladimir Putin was to hold a meeting with Russian policymakers in order to discuss reintroducing some capital controls to help prop up the struggling ruble. Citing a Russian finance ministry proposal, the Financial Times said large exporters could be forced to convert up to 80% of their foreign currency into rubles in order to raise demand for the currency. The UK government red tape on wind farm projects is going to add £1.5 billion a year to energy bills. New offshore wind farms will be strangled by the government red tape, costing UK bill payers £1.5 billion a year, an analysis has found. The latest government auction for new offshore wind farms, due to be completed in September, could result in projects making it through Treasury rules, according to the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, the ECIU, a non-profit organisation. Rules set by the Treasury do not take into account of predictions that the gas prices will stay high and put an arbitrary limit on the number of farms that can be contracted. They mean that the budget set in the government's contracts for difference auction is unlikely to be spent because many wind farms will not get through the auction, so bills will be kept higher. Despite the fact that the government recently increased the budget for the auction from 170 million to 190 million, analysts at the ECIU said this was likely to make little difference to the outcome of the auction and ignored the fact that renewables were predicted to save customers money. The previous auction round did not meet the budget, and previous analysis found that 1 gigawatt of wind power was missed out on, along with the savings of 225 million a year. The ECIU found that the current auction could secure as little as 2 gigawatts of offshore wind, leading to missed savings of more than 1.5 billion a year from cheaper renewable energy, compared to about 7 gigawatts that could have been secured. Energy experts have criticised the government for tax breaks to oil companies and not allowing wind farms to thrive. Jess Rolston, an energy analyst from the ECIU, said the government seems to be focused on North Sea gas licenses and tax breaks for oil companies that won't bring down bills, while tying up offshore winds that generate electricity cheaper than gas in red tape. What is going on? Even with inflation pushing costs up for offshore wind farms, it will still generate electricity much cheaper than gas power stations. Stifling wind farms pushes up bills. The Treasury's rules seem to be actively working against bringing them down. If the rules around these auctions were not loosened, the ECIU said it could put the goal of 50 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030 at risk. Disabled people in the UK face worsening discrimination and a growing risk of poverty as a result of government failings to tackle problems ranging from welfare benefits to employment, according to a human rights watchdog. The Equality and Human Rights Commission, the EHRC, said successive UK governments had made little or no progress in addressing 11 policy recommendations identified by United Nations investigators in a highly critical report in 2016, which accused ministers of systematic violations of disabled people's rights. In a report to the UN published today, the EHRC said that disabled people continued to be at disproportionately high risk of poverty, low income, and having poor public health services, and were likely to suffer from public prejudice and media stereotyping. A report drawn up with the EHRC's Scottish and Northern Irish counterparts said it was disappointing that so little progress had been made on improving disability rights in the UK over the past 7 years. The pandemic and the subsequent cost of living crisis had exacerbated many of the problems raised in the 2016 report, which focused heavily on the disproportionate impact of austerity cuts and welfare changes on disabled people. The EHRC said, there continues to be a disproportionate number of disabled people living on a low income or in poverty. Disabled people experience long waiting periods for benefit eligibility decisions and are more likely to use resources such as food banks, the report has said. While the UK government had set aside some one-off financial support for disabled people on low incomes to offset high food and energy bills as a result of the COVID-19 and the cost of living crisis, this did not go far enough. The EHRC said, citing official data showing that disabled people were more likely to struggle with paying gas and electricity bills. The watchdog said it remained concerned about the ability of the UK welfare system to protect the living standards and mental and physical health of disabled people, despite the introduction of some limited mitigations and protections by devolved governments. The UN report also highlighted in 2016 the frequent portrayal of disabled people in the UK media as lazy and putting a burden on taxpayers. Little progress had been made in combating such hostile stereotyping, the report had said. Kishore Faulkner, the EHRC chair, said alongside other human rights and equality bodies in Britain and Northern Ireland, we urge government in London and Cardiff to address the problems by disabled people and take action to address the UN's recommendations from 2016. Disabled people must be treated fairly, with dignity and respect. The recommendations made years ago must be addressed if the lives of disabled people are to improve. The UK had been a signatory to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Person with Disabilities since 2007. The convention includes the right to live and work independently, enjoy social protection without discrimination on the basis of disability. New figures have revealed that the DWP's sanctions policy has been used against claimants in Scotland over 115,000 times. UK government data shows that close to a third of all universal credit claimants are at risk of being sanctioned, resulting in their benefits being reduced or stopped completely. The data also showed that between May 2022 and April 2023, the failure to attend or participate in a mandatory interview was the reason for 97% of sanctions given out. David Linden MP, the party's social justice spokesperson, has urged the UK government to cease handing out unfair sanctions during the cost of living crisis while simultaneously slamming Labour for their commitment to continue cruel sanctions regimes. Commenting, David Linden MP said, "These shocking figures show how cruel Tory benefits regime has been, which is punishing the poorest members of our society, and it must come to an end during this cost of living crisis to avoid pushing more and more people into poverty." However, I have heard of far too many cases of people who have missed a bus or who have been held in traffic, making them slightly late to a job seeker's appointment, which has led to their benefits being sanctioned. In direct opposition to Westminster, the SNP government is building a social security system based on values of fairness, dignity and respect. We have uprated benefits in line with inflation, increased the game-changing Scottish Child Payment to £25 a week per child, and implemented the Best Start grants to help people through the cost of living crisis. Following the SNP's challenge to the Labour Party, calling on it to commit to devolving employment laws to Holyrood, the Labour Party's deputy leader, Angela Rayner, replied that the Labour Party opposes the devolution of employment laws. Labour has not committed to repealing UK government legislation like the EU Retained Law Bill and the Anti-Strike Bill, both of which remove employment rights and other protections from UK workers. The SNP say these laws are the latest power grabs by the UK government, allowing Westminster to override the democratically elected Scottish Parliament. The SNP say that they have previously written to Sir Keir Starmer, offering to work alongside him to oppose such legislation and to discuss the possibility of devolving employment powers to Scotland. Commenting, SNP social justice spokesperson David Linden MP said, "Labour and the Tories have worked hand in glove for years to block the devolution of employment laws to Scotland. Instead, Westminster has focused its energy on imposing an agenda of austerity that Scotland did not vote for. With regressive policies like the anti-strike bill, it is clear workers' rights are under a concerted attack. Neither the Tories or the Labour or Labour at Westminster can be trusted to protect these hard fought after rights. Power over employment law must be handed to Scotland's Parliament, where workers' rights can be defended and strengthened under progressive leadership. Labour once proudly brandished itself as the party of the workers. How far they have fallen under Sir Keir Starmer that they would rather the rights of Scottish workers were ripped up by Westminster than protected by Holyrood." Scotland remains the only nation in the UK to have successfully averted NHS strikes after a new pay settlement was reached between the Scottish Government and junior doctors. The SNP has said that this is the first testament to the First Minister and Scottish Government's commitment to protecting Scotland's NHS and delivering fair pay for junior doctors. Commenting, Emma Harper, MSP, a former nurse, said, "It's fantastic news that efforts to reach a fair pay settlement with junior doctors has been achieved in Scotland, with a deal that recognises the vital role of junior doctors and the vital contribution they make towards our health service. Once again, Scotland has shown that a better, more constructive way is possible, as the only nation in the UK to have averted NHS strikes. That is not an accident. It is a testament to the fact that the Scottish Government ministers worked constructively to produce an acceptable offer benefiting of the vital work that junior doctors do, whilst the Tories have done nothing but level outrageous attacks on our NHS staff and unions. Their response has been indicative of their attitudes towards workers' rights and basic employee protections, which they have chipped away at with anti-strike legislation and attempts to curb the power of the unions. That's why we need independence to protect workers' rights and our NHS. The Tories should follow the example of the Scottish Government and round the table with the BMA and offer junior doctors a fair pay deal to end the strikes in England," she added. The Scottish Greens have reiterated their calls for the Rosebank oil field to be rejected by the UK government on climate grounds. They say that the massive wildfires from Greece to Tenerife to Hawaii and Canada, coupled with recent floods in Norway and soaring ocean temperatures across the globe in recent weeks, are further evidence of the need to reduce, not increase, emissions. Rosebank is the biggest undeveloped oil and gas field in the North Sea. The UK government has approved licenses for more than 100 new oil and gas licenses. The Rosebank field holds nearly 500 million barrels of oil and could become operational in 2027. Campaigners and scientists have been campaigning for months for the UK government to reject it. Scottish Greens Environment spokesperson Mark Ruskell, MSP, said developing and drilling Rosebank would be a climate disaster. If we want to have a livable future, then we must end oil and gas exploration and drastically cut our dependence on planet-wrecking fossil fuels. Unfortunately, the powers to stop Rosebank sit with the Prime Minister, who has already made it clear that he does not take the climate emergency seriously. Following on that theme, more than 7,500 people have been evacuated or ordered to stay indoors as the worst wildfire in at least 4 decades is ravaging the Canary Island of Tenerife, burning through 2,600 hectares of land and drawing closer to the capital, Santa Cruz. Fernando Clavijo, the regional president of the Canaries, said that more than 250 firefighters, backed by military emergency crews and 17 aircraft, were working to tackle the fire which broke out in the northeast of the island on Tuesday and which currently has a 32-kilometer perimeter. Vicky Palma, a technical advisor to the Tenerife authorities, said a fire on a scale not seen in the Canaries since records began was creating its own meteorological conditions and showering hot ash on El Rosario municipality in the northeast of the island. Clavijo said the evacuations and confinement orders had been issued in an effort to keep people safe and to help firefighters do their job, as the blaze continued to burn out of control within 20 kilometers of Santa Cruz. The decision was taken because burning ash and wind are causing small fires in different areas, he added. Temperatures in the Canary Islands, which have peaked at more than 40 degrees in recent days, are expected to rise again on Saturday. More than 2,000 people were evacuated in a wildfire on the nearby La Palma Island last month that affected some 4,500 hectares. Wildfires have burned almost 64,000 hectares in Spain in the first 7 months of the year, according to the Spanish government data. According to EU figures, the 2022 wildfire season was the second worst on record, with the blazes devouring 1,624,381 hectares, an area of land equivalent to Montenegro. In Spain alone, wildfires burned through 315,705 hectares. More than 60 people are believed to have died after a boat they were traveling on from Senegal was found off of Cape, the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, said on Wednesday. At least 63 asylum seekers are thought to have died, while 38 survivors, including 4 children between the ages of 12 and 16, an IOM spokesperson told reporters. Police said a long wooden fishing vessel was spotted on Monday in the Atlantic Ocean off of West Africa, about 150 nautical miles from the Cape Verde island of Sal. Initial reports suggested the vessel had sunk, but later it was clarified that it was found drifting. The vessel was located by a Spanish fishing boat, which alerted Cape Verde authorities. It's unclear when the incident occurred, but according to survivors, the boat left Senegal on the 10th of July with about 100 passengers on board. Emergency services have recovered the remains of 7 people, according to the IOM spokesperson, while another 56 are believed to be missing. Generally, when people are reported missing following a shipwreck, they are presumed dead, the spokesperson said. Cape Verde lies about 350 miles off the coast on the maritime route to Spain's Canary Islands. The Atlantic migration route from West Africa to the Canary Islands, typically used to reach mainland Spain, is one of the deadliest. Safe and regular pathways to migration are sorely lacking, which is what gives room for smugglers and traffickers to put people on these deadly journeys, the IOM said. At least 559 people died attempting to reach the Canary Islands in 2022, while 126 people died or went missing on the same route in the first 6 months of this year, with 15 shipwrecks recorded, according to the IOM. In July, another 15 people drowned when a boat capsized off the coast of Senegal's capital, Dakar. Europe's Border and Coast Guard Agency said last week that asylum seeker arrival had risen by 13% between January and July to 176,100, the highest number for the period since 2016. Frontex said the increase was entirely driven by a 115% rise in the number of people using the central Mediterranean route, which is now the main route into the EU and accounts for more than half of all border detections. At least 11 asylum seekers died on Monday and 7 others remain missing after the boat they were traveling on capsized off of the Tunisia's coast, according to the Tunisian authorities. The week before, another 41 people are feared to have died after a boat sank in the rough seas off the Italian island of Lampedusa in the central Mediterranean. Moving to America, Donald Trump and the 18 co-defendants charged with racketeering and crimes for conspiring to subvert the 2020 presidential election in a criminal enterprise are set to be booked in jail in Fulton County, Georgia, according to the local sheriff's office. Trump and his co-defendants, including Rudy Giuliani, an attorney for the ex-president, and former New York City Mayor Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff, can turn themselves in any time since the jail is open 24/7, the sheriff's office has said. District Attorney Fani Willis said the grand jury has issued arrest warrants for all 19 defendants during a news conference after she delivered a sweeping 41-count indictment on Monday. Defendants have until the 25th of August to surrender voluntarily, after which they can expect to be arrested. The sheriff's office added that due to the unprecedented nature of the case, some circumstances may change with little or no warning. In Georgia, the booking process, which typically includes fingerprinting, collecting personal information, and taking a booking photo or mugshot, is separate from the arraignment process. The presiding judge, Scott McAfee, who was appointed to the bench in February, can dictate whether defendants can appear virtually for their arraignment or where they can plead guilty or not guilty. Trump, who faces a total of 91 charges across all 4 indictments, has pled not guilty to every felony count and has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. The Georgia indictment is Trump's 4th in 5 months and 2nd related to his role in the January 6th Capitol attack. Trump has so far avoided getting his mugshots taken, despite being arraigned 3 times, but that could change. Earlier this month, Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt indicated that there could be a first-time Trump mugshot, which law enforcement officials elsewhere passed on. "It doesn't matter your status, we'll have a mugshot ready for you," Labatt told reporters ahead of the looming indictment. "Unless somebody tells me differently, we are following our normal practices. At this point, based on the guidance received from the district attorney's office and presiding judge, it is expected that all 19 defendants named in the indictment will be booked on the Rice Street Jail," according to a statement from Natalie Ammons, a spokesperson for the sheriff's office. The Trump campaign has tried to capitalize on the ex-president's criminal indictment, blasting supporters with fundraising requests. Back to Scotland now, and according to the Great British Day Visits Survey, the number of tourism day visits in Scotland taken by UK residents in the first 3 months of 2023 was up 12% on the same period of last year. The survey also reveals these visitors spent around £1 billion in Scotland. Commenting on the figures, Tourism Minister Richard Lochhead said, "Scotland is increasingly seen as an attractive place to visit, and we strive to support and work with the tourism and hospitality sector to grow its economic value while delivering the very best for visitors, businesses and communities. I recognise the importance of tourism and hospitality for Scotland's economy, and these encouraging statistics reinforce the resilience, creativity, commitment and innovation of the sector in response to what has been an incredibly challenging time. And one last story of the night. Hamza Yusuf today met with the Prime Minister of Iceland, Katrin Jakobsdóttir. Hamza Yusuf said the following: I was pleased to welcome Prime Minister Katrin Jakobsdóttir for a positive discussion on how our two countries can expand our existing partnerships and improve the lives of both our countries. The strong ties between Scotland and Iceland go back many years, and we are committed to developing even stronger bilateral relations. Building upon existing areas of collaboration in areas such as renewable energy, biodiversity, and sustainable marine economy. We continue to engage with Icelandic experts to inform the development of our Barnshus model, and will improve children's experience of Scotland's healthcare, child protection, and criminal justice system for those who have experienced trauma. Alongside Scotland, Iceland is a founding member of the Wellbeing Economy Governance Group, and I congratulate the Prime Minister on her appointment to the World Health Organization's Champion for the Wellbeing Economy Initiative, a prestigious recognition of Iceland's commitment to justice and advancing equality. So that's it from me this evening. Thank you so much for watching, and before I go, I just wanted to remind you that here at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on you, our viewers, the generosity of our supporters. So to everyone who's donated and to everyone who's signed up already to make regular monthly payments, thank you so much. Our programmes will of course always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. Right now, we have an incredibly pressing need to raise £30,000 to pay our bills and ensure that we can continue making programmes for you to enjoy. We have nearly raised £11,500, but we really need to raise the remaining £18,500 as soon as possible. I'm Saoirse Healey. Thank you for watching and good night.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Lewis McGlynn.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Saoirse Healey.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Donald C. Stewart. Broadcasting Scotland is Scotland's independent broadcaster, providing factual news, reporting on the issues important to the people of Scotland.
We are committed to public service broadcasting, and with your support, we will produce even more programmes.
Provide opportunities for young people interested in media production and broadcasting, and challenge preconceptions of what Scottish media looks like, amplifying Scotland's voice and reflecting its communities.
We can already deliver high-quality live news, and we will create the highest quality programmes for you to enjoy. But we can only do that with your support.
So please subscribe to and share our channel or donate to Broadcasting Scotland via the link in the description. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.